Welcome to the first ever video for Red Zone Renegade. I am Matt Durst, and as a NFL fan page, I decided it was time for a video, and I decided today that it was a good time to do a mock draft. Hope you enjoy. Hello guys, today with me to do this mock draft video I have Zach Stangline from his fan page, Feelin the Rush.
Hi guys, how's it going? It's an honor to kind of be here with you, Matt. Thanks for having me. It's an honor to be here for your first real live person interview video.
I'm excited.
Yeah, it's time to roll this one out, huh?
Oh yeah. All right, well, to start things off, we know the draft order, and with the first pick, I have Nick Bosa going to the Arizona Cardinals, defensive end from Ohio State.
Right, we both kind of agreed all the way down through 4, but for the sake of the mock, we'll kind of run through the video with the number 1 overall pick, Nick Bosa. I as well had that selection. By far, I think he's the best player in this draft. I think the name value is what gives it away as the first overall pick. Quinnen Williams might be up there for a split second, but at the end of the day, you got to go with that hot name.
I mean, I think this pairs well with Chandler Jones sitting in Arizona, having a new head coach. And I think it's going to be a big change in Arizona come next season. Right. I mean, I know the rumors have been said that Cliff has wanted Kyler, but I think that for the sake of doing things correctly, I think he should go Nick Bosa.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, and his tape doesn't lie, even though he cut his senior season short. I mean, you can't get any better than a big man pass rusher.
Yes, exactly. I mean, if you look at the tape from what Joey did in college, it almost looks like Nick Bosa has that better kind of transition to what he could be as a pro.
I agree.
From Joey's stuff, he started out kind of in a rough spot. He didn't want to go to the Chargers. He went number 3. He didn't go number 1. But what really looked at the intangibles, his length, his ability to get to the pass rusher, it really kind of made him that top name at the defensive position. And I think that's what Nick Bosa is going to have. But I think Nick Bosa was the best player out of the 2 of them, which is kind of unique.
Yeah. So moving on, second pick overall, I have Quinnen Williams, D-tackle out of Alabama. I know you have the same thing.
Yeah.
I mean, he's proven himself day in, day out. I mean, he could totally go number 1. But I think having Nick Bosa up there ahead of him isn't a bad thing.
Right. I think Quinnen Williams has an ability to play any position on the line, similar to the Michigan prospect with Rashawn Gary. Quinnen Williams, he definitely can play a defensive tackle, but he also can be kicked out to a defensive end. His size is going to limit him, but I think he can do the most damage on the inside. We see a lot with the 49ers taking a lot of interior defensive linemen throughout all these drafts, like DeForest Buckner. You have Solomon Thomas, who also can play a D-tackle, D-end. But Quinnen Williams definitely is super special. His ability to get at the pass, to attack the pass, is what separates him from the rest.
The other thing I could see that San Fran might do here is trade back into the first round. I mean, we don't have a really clear number 1 receiver on there, and I definitely think it's too early to take a receiver in this draft.
Yeah.
They have a pretty solid defense, and with Garoppolo coming back and McKinnon coming back, I think if they could get a clear number 1 receiver, that might be a possibility, but that might be something to look towards into the second round. There's a bunch of good receivers. I mean, I watched the Senior Bowl yesterday, and there was some top-notch, small school receivers that could
definitely
become
some later
number
round
1.
help too,
And so moving on now, we're going to go to the New York Jets, and we have Josh Allen, outside linebacker, D-end from Kentucky.
Thought he went to Buffalo.
This is a different Josh Allen. Definitely his presence has been known. Even though he's coming from a non-big football school, I mean, you're not hearing these Alabama kids saying that he shouldn't be up at this high. I mean, he's proven himself with all the sacks that he made. I mean, in the small school games, he's proven himself to be definitely an early round pick.
Right, absolutely. And the best part about Josh Allen, I love the attitude that he has. He went out to social media as a big name person right now for the draft, and he went out there saying that he doesn't know who else would be a number 1 pick, even with Nick Bosa and Quinnen Williams right there. I mean, we have him at number 3, but he's going out on all these lengths saying, hey, like, I'm here, recognize me. I'm not the quarterback from Wyoming who went to Buffalo. You know, like, I'm in Kentucky. Like, look at me.
Oh, yeah. I think come the NFL Combine, I think he's going to turn some heads.
Yeah, definitely. I think he can really challenge Nick Bosa and Quinnen Williams, too.
I do, too. But there are a lot of QB-needy teams, and do we really think the Jets are going to stay where they are to make sure that they get this guy or get one of those top 3 guys?
It's definitely a question mark. I mean, the Jets don't need a quarterback. They got Sam Darnold last year. I mean, the real big-name team that's out here might be needing a quarterback. You got the Giants. You got the Jags, and then kind of Broncos trickle in there with the poor performance from Case Keenum. But you kind of are looking at a class this year where you don't really know what's going to happen.
Yeah, definitely. But moving on down to the first of many first-round picks for the Oakland Raiders. We have defensive end Rashawn Gary out of Michigan.
Yep.
I think this is a big replacement for Khalil Mack.
Right.
I think he has the same body type, same mindset that he can get in and make some changes to that defense that needs a lot of help.
Yeah, and we saw early on that the Oakland Raiders were not in a position to really move forward with the roster they had.
Oh, yeah.
I believe Seth Roberts was their number 1 receiver after Amari Cooper was traded.
Yep.
But what's special about Rashawn Gary, similar to what I said about Quinnen Williams in the Niners selection, he can play both D-tackle, edge rusher, outside linebacker, and defensive end.
Oh, yeah.
So he's definitely versatile, and he can definitely fill the shoes of a Khalil Mack and play that kind of a role. As someone who watches a lot of Michigan games when they're on, very big fan of the Wolverines. But Rashawn Gary, he's definitely someone that I saw going forward being this top 5 pick, top 10 pick, and he's really something special. Really something special.
I agree. But the whole defensive line, I think, needs to definitely be restructured.
Absolutely. Jonathan
Oakland.
Hankins was a Band-Aid.
Yeah.
That's kind of the big overall push for the Raiders this year.
I mean, I think the whole defense needs a little bit more restructure because you got no clear number 1 corner out there. I mean, they got rid of Obi Melifonwu as safety, and they didn't really have any big replacement to really fill those shoes.
Yeah, they look towards veterans to fill that in.
And once you go towards veterans, you get more and more of big contracts, or they're getting old and their play is starting to regress.
Correct.
But I mean, it's definitely a big change that's going to be needed here in Oakland, and who knows, they could go quarterback here and surprise everyone because we know Gruden is not a huge fan of Carr.
You never really know, yeah. And you saw him at the Senior Bowl. He was slapping the stickers on players' helmets. He was really in Drew Lock and Daniel Jones' face a lot, which was really interesting to see.
Yep. So moving on, we got
our first difference.
This is our first difference. At number 5, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I have Devin White, linebacker out of LSU. I really chose him because they don't really have any specific, really in-depth linebacker in Tampa Bay. They really don't have anyone that can drop into coverage and really, or even attack that quarterback. I think that he'd be a great fit there. I mean, it may fill a Band-Aid here and there if he doesn't really work out, but I think that it's a good step in the right direction to fix that holy defense.
Yeah. The Buccaneers definitely have a lot of needs for my reason for picking the player that I did. But commenting back on what you did for Devin White, I really see a lot of Luke Kuechly comparisons. He commands the defense. He plays the field general. He's the quarterback of the whole defense.
Oh, yeah.
And the sideline to sideline kind of movements that he does is what really brings in that comparison to Luke Kuechly. So if you're someone in the NFC South and you have to deal with Luke Kuechly, you should see how much of a need it is to have a Luke Kuechly.
Oh, yeah.
So for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to select Devin White, it definitely fills a defensive need, even with them having Quan Alexander and David, Levante David, I think his name is. I'm not really sure, but they definitely have some suitable guys there. But they're getting older. They're a top 5 pick team where they're kind of struggling. So it definitely could see the need for a little refresh or reboot with the Buccaneers defense. And kind of leading into that real quick, I had the Buccaneers selecting the tackle from Florida, Jawan Taylor. This is a little bit of a move up for him. A lot of people have been fighting Jonah Williams and other offensive lineman talent, but Jawan Taylor to me seems like the most pro-ready lineman who can kick out to guard and or center. His size is my biggest concern. He doesn't have this huge bulk to him, but he's definitely able to shuffle the feet, kind of stay low in the pocket when he can pass block, But they don't really seem to rely on the run anymore. Yeah. They drafted Ronald Jones, and they struggled to use him. And that's where I think they need a complete makeover on the offensive line position, Jawan Taylor being a pure pass blocking tackle.
I think this would be a great pick for them if they take Jawan Taylor. They definitely need to have some better pass blockers, changing between quarterbacks, not because of being sacked and being injured, but because of poor play. But
they had the highest passing offense in the league, and here they are at number 5.
Yeah. So who knows what they'll do with this pick?
Yeah. This was their first toss-up,
yeah.
So it definitely was a interesting selection.
Well, that didn't last very long. We're back to being similar on the same pick.
Yep.
With the 6th overall pick, the New York Giants, we have Dwayne Haskins, quarterback out of Ohio State.
I'll let you kind of take it away, because since you're the Giants fan here, you know.
As a Giants fan, I could see the Giants doing a lot of different things with this pick. Quarterback being one of the bigger ones, because we've seen in time out in these last couple of years, Eli's not the same Eli that he used to be.
Right.
He can still play at a high level. I don't disagree with that. But adding Saquon last year and having Odell out there and Evan Ingram and Sterling Shepard, you got to have a quarterback that can get him the ball without, when he sees a little bit of pass rush coming at him, he kind of falls to the ground. Having a little bit of a stockier quarterback that can be mobile when he needs to be mobile in Dwayne Haskins, I think would fit the New York Giants scheme very well. And I think this would give Pat Shurmur a little bit of a project, because Dwayne's only had 1 year as a starter, but I think this would be a great fit for the Giants as of right now.
Right, and having this being the first quarterback off of the board here for both of us, I think I gotta add a little point here. Me being a Panthers fan, I'm used to the Cam Newton stigma. He is of African American descent, so you kind of bring in the whole question mark of, can they perform in this league? And with the current climate of the NFL, things are changing. We're looking at a 5'9 3/4 quarterback possibly being a first-round selection with Kyler Murray. And he's already been drafted into baseball. Things are changing, and that is the biggest question mark here in sports right now. But with Dwayne Haskins, he really brings this whole new dimension to the game. He is an extremely smart quarterback, although he does throw. He's a little bit trigger happy when he throws the ball down the field. But Dwayne Haskins, he's intelligent. He has a great cannon. And what's unique is that the Ohio State quarterback stigma really sticks around, the Troy Smith kind of mobile quarterback that an Urban Meyer would bring in. And Troy Smith did amazing for the Buckeyes years ago, won a Heisman and was drafted in the 6th round because of his skill set. But Dwayne Haskins, he's really the cream of the crop when it comes to the quarterback class because of his intelligence, his his footwork and what he can do with the ball. He's no Cardale Jones with that cannon of an arm, but what he is that Cardale isn't is a first-round quarterback.
I agree. Well, moving on, number 7, we got Jacksonville. I had Drew Lock, QB out of Mizzou. This kid has proven himself to be a first-round pick.
Oh, yeah.
I know you're a huge fan of him.
Oh, yes.
But I think that the Jacksonville Jaguars have expressed that they want to move on from Blake Bortles. And I think this is the kid that can do that for them.
Mm-hmm.
I think I could see Daniel Jones falling here and them picking him. I see Drew Lock fitting a little bit more. He's a little bit more mobile. He's not a complete pure pocket passer. He can move when he wants to, but he definitely is the better passer in a pure pocket sense.
Right. Drew Lock is my personal favorite player in this draft. Carolina doesn't need a quarterback, at least, from right now's standpoint. But
maybe later round.
Yeah, who knows? But Drew Lock, by far, is my favorite prospect in this draft. Based on his ability to do stuff with the ball. He's got a great cannon. He's kind of drawing that Josh Allen stigma from the draft. He can throw it deep, and he's doing great, but can he complete a pass? His percentage is a little bit lower than you'd want, and that's what's drawing people away.
I agree.
I do think Dwayne Haskins is the best quarterback in this draft, and that's why we have him going with the first quarterback selection. But Drew Lock definitely has the ability to make things happen, and that's why the Jacksonville Jaguars need a quarterback like this. But the reason why we have 2 different selections here is, if you're the Jacksonville Jaguars in a top 10 pick selection, are you going to repeat the Blaine Gabbert scenario of drafting a quarterback from Mizzou? So that's where I said no, and I think the Jacksonville Jaguars, not being able to draft Dwayne Haskins, they are going to take an offensive lineman with Cody Ford from Oklahoma. To me, besides Jawan Taylor being my first one off the board, I think Cody Ford is the biggest, the baddest offensive lineman in this draft. You can really kick him in to be a guard and just wreak havoc, or you can train him to be an offensive tackle and really become something special in the league. I don't see a Luke Jokel kind of scenario when Jacksonville took him as high as number 2 years ago when the Chiefs had the first selection. But with Cody Ford, you have a mountain of a man being able to command the offensive line and really take on defensive lines.
I agree. So moving on, number 8, the Detroit Lions. I have defensive end out of Clemson, Clelin Ferrell. I think this is a great pick for them. Pair him up with Snacks Harrison on the inside. I mean, that's 2 people on that defensive line. You give them a third, and then that's someone to wreak havoc in that division, who's definitely a run-heavy division with Delvin Cook over there, and you got Tariq Cohen and Jordan Howard running the ball for
Aaron Jones coming up from a huge season and having a new running backs coach. You need that defensive help.
Yep. And he can definitely get to the QB. We saw that definitely in the championship game against Alabama. And he proved himself by coming back one more year to be that first-round pick out of Clemson.
He definitely could have been a first-round pick last year, and he decided to stay, and he probably moved his stock up.
Yeah.
I saw a lot of mock drafts last year having him around the 20s and 30s. But this year, now he's right now in the, he's in the teens, or sorry, not even teens. We're in top 10. But Clelin Ferrell definitely is a great selection for the Detroit Lions, especially with the question marks of Ziggy Ansah. I think that's the driving force of them wanting a defensive end. They had extreme interest in him last year before they heard the bad news of him staying in Clemson. But for them this year, hey, you can just grab that guy.
Into their hands.
Exactly. And here we are with another difference on our mocks. I had the Detroit Lions selecting Devin White, who you had at number 5 for the Buccaneers. Devin White, to me, is that Luke Kuechly player that I described earlier. Won't get into all that again. But with the Detroit Lions selecting Devin White, they desperately need a linebacking commander, really. They struggle with the defense as a whole. I mean, since Matt Patricia took over, they've struggled on defense and offense this past season, and hopefully this is his comeback season, saying his genius is going to show. But Devin White definitely needs to go to a linebacking needy team, and Detroit Lions definitely need that position. Gerard Davis, he just has not filled the bill, but
Not at all.
hopefully he can turn it around, really be something special.
I agree. Commenting on that, I think both players would fit Detroit
Absolutely.
fantastically, and I think whichever one they pick, or even anyone else that they pick, I think
absolutely.
is going to help their team out tremendously.
Right. I think what helps the Lions the most, just a quick side note here, just worth mentioning, Ashawn Robinson and Deshaun Hand really provided a great interior with Snacks Harrison. And I think
agree.
that's what's going to change the Detroit Lions selection overall to more of a defensive, let's get the best player available.
Yeah.
So we can move on from that.
So moving on to number 9, we got the Buffalo Bills. I had a surprise pick here. I think I had the Bills taking Josh Jacobs, running back out of Alabama.
So why Josh Jacobs?
I really chose this because we really didn't see much out of Shady McCoy this year. I mean, he's just not the same Shady as you saw down in Philly or even the first couple of years he was in Buffalo. I think this gives the Bills an opportunity to have this dual threat at running back like we see in New Orleans. I think you have a veteran in Shady McCoy who can train and show this smaller guy who's 5'10" and just over 200 pounds, this small man, how to be an NFL running back. And I mean, I really switched up who I was putting here because I read a couple articles and saw that he was graded on many people's draft boards higher than Leonard Fournette, who went to the Jaguars at number 4.
Yeah.
I think that this would be a great fit and definitely a stepping stone into moving on from Shady McCoy.
Okay. So what really led you to kind of say, hey, Buffalo, I know you need offensive linemen, I know you need some defensive help, let's just take a running back?
I think it surprised me even to do this, but I think that they could get both a weapon to give Josh Allen in the second round and give him a great running back and third down back option in the first round. I think there's a great depth of people who they can fit in defensively through the 3rd and the 7th round. And I know they have some compensation picks that they get. I think that they can fill out what they need and fill in a spot in the first round that says we're not done running the ball.
Right.
Yeah. Whereas I saw a lot this year where it was Josh Allen running the ball when he's supposed to be throwing the ball.
Right, yeah. Well, I think what gives Josh Allen that edge with it is that he can run the ball. A lot of people ignore that he was compared to Cam Newton with the size and the large cannon that he's got. I mean, he's got a bigger arm than Cam, but they both were known for throwing it deep and also being able to run. But definitely an interesting selection, and it would be great to actually see more and more playmakers want to come to Buffalo.
I agree. I think this would be a surprising factor to everyone. I mean, I could see someone trading up into this spot or even a little later to snag this guy. I could see the Chiefs doing it, who
need a running back,
Kareem Hunt, and really need that running back. I mean, they saw great production out of Damian Williams and Spencer Ware, but do you really want to trust your whole franchise on those two guys?
Absolutely. And I'll kind of jump over to my selection here. It's not the sexiest pick, but the Buffalo Bills will be selecting Andre Dillard, offensive tackle from Washington State, on my mock draft. Andre Dillard, by far, is my favorite offensive tackle prospect this year. He's let in only 1 sack on 700-plus attempts with a drop back. That alone should sell,
crazy.
Hey, let's get that kind of a guy for Josh Allen.
Oh, yeah.
But Andre Dillard, if you watch the Senior Bowl, he provided the perfect amount of examples, I'll say. You know, his drills were insanely good. He was lined up against Montez Sweat, who I have listed in the first round here. But he performed exceptionally well, and he has so much upside. He was a basketball player. He moved up to playing tackle. He wanted to gain the weight. He wanted to do this. This was all his choosing because he loves this game. And that's why I think the Buffalo Bills need to grab someone that loves the game of football, especially as an offensive lineman position, because it's not a sexy position.
No.
You're not a 300-pound man saying like, oh, okay, like I'm just gonna, block some people. You want to be the Odells, you want to be the Antonios, you want to be, the Saquons. You want to be all these guys that are doing all these things, going to Pro Bowls and making a name for yourself. But the biggest reason why I have Andre Dillard here is because look at what the Colts did with Quentin Nelson. Thank you. Yeah, Quentin Nelson from Notre Dame last year. He did an exceptional job. He's actually been one of the first offensive linemen to be listed as a Rookie of the Year candidate. He's been an incredible force. He turned the whole offensive linemen around that were around him, and he really provided to be something great for the Colts. So let's do it for the Bills. They need to restart this offensive line problem that they have after Incognito left, after Glenn left, and especially after Eric Wood had that devastating injury where he was forced to retire. So I say Andre Dillard is the pick for the Bills.
So moving on, we have the Denver Broncos at 10. This is rounding out our top 10. I have DeAndre Baker, cornerback out of Georgia. I have this pick because your best corner is sitting with Chris Harris Jr. And I think Chris Harris is a great player. I think we just need to pair someone up with him. I mean, this kid could be the next Champ Bailey for Denver.
Oh, absolutely.
I've seen a lot of his tape. I mean, great production out of him. I mean, he can get down the field, he can stay with his guy, he can play zone, he can cover, he can get to that run support position.
Absolutely.
I think he is fighting for that top corner with Greedy Williams, with Byron Murphy. I think with his ability to be everywhere kind of a thing, I think that's what Denver could see with him.
Lengthy arms is what gets me with DeAndre Baker. I mean, he plays like a wide receiver on defense.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like, okay, like let's bat some balls down. Let's do that, especially in a division where they pass heavy Chargers, and we saw Mahomes do all this great stuff where you need to get your arms up there.
Oh, yeah.
So, with the 10th overall selection, the Denver Broncos on my mock draft, they will be selecting Daniel Jones from Duke, the quarterback from Duke. Yeah, that's right. A Duke player went in the top 10 on a football mock draft. We had Kentucky, so let's get another Duke. Let's get a Duke kid. This is a basketball. Right, this isn't basketball. So why is Daniel Jones a selection for the Denver Broncos? Case Keenum did not produce that well. I'm a big fan of Case Keenum and what he can do. We all saw the Minnesota Miracle and what he did for the Vikings leading up to that point. But we also saw the giant collapse that happened in that NFC Championship game with the Eagles. I think Daniel Jones can learn under Case Keenum and John Elway, and especially being the MVP of the Senior Bowl game. I think Daniel Jones really had a huge stepping stone with that game. This selection was not made prior to the Senior Bowl or even the practices. I think Daniel Jones is probably one of the best, if the best quarterback prospect in this draft. I mean, I know I said Dwayne Haskins this whole time, and I am sticking to that, but Daniel Jones is going to give him a run for his money. I agree.
So moving on to number 11, stepping out of the top 10 here now. We got the Cincinnati Bengals, and I chose T.J. Hawkinson, tight end out of Iowa. This is surprising because you can all say they have Tyler Eifert, great, but can he complete a season without an injury?
Ever since that Pro Bowl, he has issues.
And I mean, looking at this kid, I mean, he has another player coming out of Iowa, Albert Ogunjobi, right? Out of
Oh,
Iowa.
Albert O.
Yeah.
I don't even know how to say his full name, but he's actually from Mizzou.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Noah Fant is
Noah
from
Fant.
Iowa.
So he even has his own teammate coming out into the draft, and he's a underclassman, and everyone's saying that the better tight end out of the two is TJ.
Yeah.
And I definitely can see the Bengals saying, all right, we need to fill this spot because Tyler Eifert's just going to keep getting injured, and we got to fill this spot so we have another target for Andy Dalton to throw to. This is another team we could see looking towards a quarterback, but is it a first-round need for them? I don't think so. I think Andy Dalton has some more years in it.
Me too. And I think even with this Marvin Lewis firing, I still think that Andy Dalton is the quarterback for the future of the Cincinnati Bengals. And that's kind of what's going to give that the push it needs. He just seems to run out of weapons every single year.
I agree.
And it's not just Eifert. We saw A.J. Green have a small issue at the end of the season. John Ross has issue after issue. Tyler Boyd had an issue this year. And the weapons just start to fall off the face of the planet, you know? Like,
I know.
all they had
crazy.
was Joe Mixon and Giovanni Bernard in the pass game. So what do? You know, you need to stock up with some weapons here. But TJ Hawkinson is my favorite tight end in this year's draft. I think he's going to go higher than his teammate with Noah Fant, but I think Noah Fant might have a brighter career, but TJ definitely has the skills and character traits that an NFL roster is going to want, and you need it. The Bengals need it. I think that's a good selection. But on my mock draft, I differed. I have the Cincinnati Bengals selecting defensive tackle from Mississippi State, Jeffrey Simmons. I think Jeffrey Simmons has moved up so far in this draft that I think that if he even waited a year, that he might be a running candidate for a top 5 selection. So many NFL teams have come out and said that Jeffrey Simmons is on top of, Ed Oliver. Some even say over Rashawn Gary. But I think him landing with the Cincinnati Bengals is just perfect. You got Akins. He's extremely old. He needs a successor. The Bengals need a defense that can perform with, the Antonios, or should I say Smith-Schusters, the James Connors, and then especially Baker Mayfield being such a great player this year. The Bengals need someone in the interior that can be a future for them. And that's why I say Jeffrey Simmons.
I agree. So moving on to number 12, we got the Green Bay Packers.
I think we both had a Clemson player here, didn't we?
Yes, we did.
Oh, okay.
So both picking out of Clemson and both picking players that could have came out last year,
Yep.
and they both thought about it, but they wanted one more run for that title that they got.
Yep.
So I chose the defensive tackle, Christian Wilkins. And I think this is a great pick for them. They really need an interior, especially in that run-heavy NFC North division. Big body player and can get into those gaps pretty quickly. I mean, he can move some people around that are twice his size. I mean, it's crazy what he did. I mean, even in the Senior Bowl and in that championship game.
Absolutely.
So I think this would be a great fit, and I think Green Bay really needs to hit the head on the nail with a defensive player this year.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I had the Green Bay Packers selecting Clelin Ferrell from Clemson. The biggest reason is because of the 3-4 that they can run if they choose to continue to run the 3-4. You can use Clelin in many positions. You can flip him out to an outside linebacker, get his hand out of the dirt, but he's renowned for putting his hand in the dirt. Mm-hmm. But with Muhammad Wilkerson being a question mark for the future of this team, and Clay Matthews being a question mark, and all these other defensive players that they seem to hang on to, I think the Packers need a superstar. They, like you said, they need to hit a home run on this play. play on this pick. So I say the Green Bay Packers are selecting Clelin Ferrell. We had the same ideas. Yours is more of an anchor for the middle. Mine's more of a get the superstar right out of the gate.
And another addition to why I picked Christian, going back to that 3-4, Christian's been known for being the best nose tackle out of this draft class, or one of the best.
One of the best, yeah.
He, at Clemson, he didn't really play nose tackle because they played the 4-3 mainly because they had the double.
They have so many weapons.
They have so many weapons, and they wanted to use them all.
Right.
Which I agree that they should. So moving on,
I think
Miami
I should
Dolphins.
just let you take this one away. I mean, just overall, go for it.
So the Miami Dolphins, we chose Kyler Murray, QB out of Oklahoma. I think this is a pick that may be surprising to people because everyone could say, Ryan Tannehill's there. Why not Ryan Tannehill?
So why not Ryan Tannehill?
So having a new head coach coming in and seeing the production that Tannehill hasn't really put in and his injury history. I mean, you went from Tannehill to Jay Cutler, back to Tannehill, who didn't really prove much, and Osweiler, just because he couldn't stay healthy. So I think this would be a great pick for them. You get a mobile quarterback. You have that headliner of the draft because he is short. He is not the ideal size of an NFL quarterback. But if he plays the way he's played in college, everyone's going to be like, why'd we pass on this kid?
Right.
Why'd we pass on this kid? Like the Giants, they could say, all right, we want a mobile quarterback. We want that headliner kind of quarterback. Why not take Kyler Murray? Does he really fit our scheme?
The biggest question mark with Kyler Murray is where's his dedication to football after being drafted to the Oakland A's for the MLB draft? He went 9th overall there, and he pretty much told them, like, I need X amount of money, just because I don't know off the top of my head, but I need X amount of money, and I'll commit to baseball. And the Oakland A's were like, whoa, hey now, like, we need to take a look now and see what's up, because he's got 2 extremely good opportunities right on the table, and he's just going to have to pick one.
Yep. And I think as long as he goes in the top 20, his average salary would be better than what he would ever make in the MLB. So he has to weigh his options. I mean, he's a great player in both sports, and it's going to be surprising what he decides he wants to do unless he falls off. I mean, I've seen mock drafts of him being the successor of Tom Brady.
Yep.
So, I don't know. We'll see.
We will see.
So, moving on. Number 14. I had Ed Oliver, D-tackle out of Houston.
We both did.
Oh, we both did. I think this is a great pick. He can flip him outside. He is that speed rusher that you may need in that NFC South.
Yep.
I had to think about that. I mean, because you got the Cam Newtons, the Christian McCaffreys, you have Drew Brees, who's getting older, but you have Alvin Kamara and Mark Ingram that you have to get to these guys quicker than if they break free. Are you ever going to catch them kind of a thing?
Yeah. Ed Oliver, he was one of the possible top 2 options in the draft this season. And his fall came to off-the-field issues. Well, I shouldn't say off the field. I should say more on the sideline. He got in several fights with his head coach, and I don't want to get into all the nitty-gritty details about Ed Oliver and his dilemmas there at Houston, but it seemed to be more of the head coach really didn't like this kid either, and they kind of fought based on that. I mean, he's on the sideline, and he was wearing a team jacket, and his coach was like, no, you can't wear that. You're not playing today. And they just bickered from that. And that's where his stock starts to fall. But the NFL scouts, they really want to see that clean-cut kid that can provide this all-around great personality. They want to bring all this great stuff to the team and the forefront.
So moving on to number 15, we got the Washington Redskins in this pick, and we both chose the same position, just a different guy.
Yep.
So we both chose quarterback. I chose Daniel Jones out of Duke. I chose this because I could see Daniel Jones being an up-the-board kind of guy. He could go a little earlier, but I think if he falls to this spot and the Washington Redskins are unsure about Alex Smith's commitment, I mean, not commitment, but ability
yeah.
to play again with that nasty injury.
Yeah, those darn Texans.
Yeah. But I think that Daniel Jones would fit very well in this offense. Very similar to the Duke offense, I think. You run, and then if the running's not working, you pass. Right. Kind of like an RPO kind of offense.
Yeah, and I'm just going to jump right to it and say I had Drew Lock, quarterback from Missouri, go right here for the Redskins. Same ideology. I mean, I think it's kind of the I had Daniel Jones go to the Broncos, and it was under the same idea that Case Keenum and John Elway can tutor him. Mm-hmm. Well, I think Alex Smith can do the same with Drew Lock. Drew Lock's a very special player, and I mean, just for sake of moving on, I'll just kind of leave it at I think we could have a very similar Patrick Mahomes and Drew Lock scenario with the Redskins after this whole selection.
I agree. Well, I'll let you start this pick off.
Okay.
Being the Panthers pick. So at number 16, the Carolina Panthers pick.
All right. With the 16th overall selection, I had the Carolina Panthers selecting Montez Sweat, the defensive end, outside linebacker prospect from Mississippi State. So, this selection was very difficult for me. Not because I'm a fan, but it's more because there's a lot of needs with a lot of prospects still on the board. It was very tough to avoid Andres Greedy Williams. His nickname is more known than his first name right now, but it was between him, it was between Jonathan Abram, it was between Deontay Thompson, and it was between Byron Murphy, and even Christian Wilkins for my mock draft's sake. But I think Montez, he has the highest upside, as well as I think Julius Peppers will have the perfect understudy, or not understudy, but apprentice is what I should be saying. His pass rushing is insurmountable to none. He's really provided a great videotape for the Senior Bowl this year. As I said with Andre Dillard, they definitely got at it. They learned from each other's tendencies, but Montez Sweat can also switch out to a linebacker position, which the Panthers have been rumored to go to 3-4 with the issues they had last year. I don't think it's going to happen, but if it was to happen, they have a perfect candidate that can go down in the dirt and stick his hand back up and play linebacker.
I know this sad news has come about Devin Funchess possibly not being re-signed.
Yeah, still a rumor, but it's possible.
If he doesn't get re-signed, could you see a wide receiver being picked here?
No. Mainly because we took DJ Moore so early. We also have Curtis Samuel on roster. We use them two more. DJ Moore. We use them more. But we use them more than we even utilized Funch's ability. I think this is the Devin Funch's wash is more of a look at let's get rid of what Gettleman gave us, because he wanted the two towers with Calvin Benjamin and Devin Funchess going up and grabbing balls from Cam Newton's inaccuracy. But even with Cam Newton's inaccuracy at the quarterback position, I think we've seen a lot of reverse plays with Curtis Samuel. We've seen a lot of trick plays and wide receiver screens and these actual plays I didn't even think could happen as a Panthers fan. So I don't think this could be a wide receiver position. If it is, it would be interesting because it would be who's going to be your number 3, or who's going to play that outside role.
Yeah.
So Yeah, that's basically my reasoning for that.
So moving to my mock draft for the Carolina Panthers, I had Jonathan Abram, safety out of Mississippi State. I know that was one person that you were looking at.
Yeah.
I think this would be a great pick to put back there and have someone else than a veteran safety out there, next to Mike Adams.
Yeah.
But I think anywhere on the defense is where they're going to go on this pick. I mean, minus a middle linebacker because I don't think they need another one. But I think it's going to be interesting to see what David Mayo can do. Now that Thomas Davis is not going to be there.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what Luke Kuechly and David Mayo can do together and who could you put on that other side or draft someone who could be on that other side to make that chemistry very good.
And we do have Shaq Thompson too out there, which would help that amazingly.
True. But so moving on to number 17, we got the Cleveland Browns at this pick. We went opposite sides of the ball on this one. I went Jawan Taylor, offensive tackle out of Florida. I chose this pick because they really didn't have anyone to fill in for Joe Thomas when he retired. I think this would be someone who can fill those shoes and give them that big body, strong guy on that tackle position. And let's get that run game even better than it was with Nick Chubb. I mean, who knew Nick Chubb was going to put the numbers that he did?
Stay healthy.
And stay healthy. But, I mean, he stayed healthy. He put up great numbers. Imagine what you can do with an even better offensive line. And that's where I saw them saying, we need some people who can block the Pittsburgh Steelers, like, defensive line and outside linebackers, and even that Baltimore Ravens, strong, as always, defense. So I think they could go offensive tackle with Jawan Taylor here.
Okay. Well, I was on the opposite side of the ball, like you said. I said Christian Wilkins will be the selection for the Cleveland Browns here, basically because the board mainly fell this way. But overall, we saw what happened with Chris Jones in Kansas City, and now that the Browns GM was the Chiefs GM when he took him, I'm thinking here that Christian Wilkins can fill that role, and we can start to see the recreation of that Chiefs defense that was so good so many years ago with Dorsey. And it'll start to transition and trickle on over to Cleveland. I think this is the perfect pick for the Browns with a perfect complement to Myles Garrett, and that's basically where I kind of stood on the Wilkins selection.
So moving on to number 18, the Minnesota Vikings picked here, and
We had the same selection.
We had the same selection, and I think that this selection just kind of came because he fell.
Best lineman on the board.
He fell to this position, and that's Jonah Williams, offensive lineman out of Alabama. And this is where the biggest need in the Minnesota Vikings is. I mean, Kirk Cousins couldn't even stand tall in that backfield with that offensive line. So I think that this is where they need to go. If Jonah Williams doesn't fall here, he's got to go. They got to go guard or center or even find a new tackle.
Right. My apologies for my dog barking upstairs.
Okay.
But I agree. Jonah Williams is the best player on this board. I think that he will be used more as a offensive guard rather than an offensive tackle, mainly because of his body shape, his frame, and the way he shuffles his feet. Do I see him playing tackle overall? Yes. I think he has a great ability to be able to move around the line. I just don't see him as a center. But I think the Vikings could use someone like that. If it wasn't Jonah Williams, if I'm a Vikings fan, I'm praying for Cody Ford. Basically just to have that solid piece on the line. Would you like to just keep going straight down the line here? We can go right at 19.
So the Tennessee Titans, I chose A.J. Brown, wide receiver out of Ole Miss. They need someone to pair up with opposite of Corey Davis. Corey Davis hasn't put up great numbers, but hasn't put up bad numbers. I think that A.J. Brown can definitely complement what Corey Davis does well, and I think A.J. Brown can pick up where Corey Davis falls.
Okay.
So I think this would be a great pick for them and give Mario to someone else to throw to than Genu Smith or even Deion Lewis out of the backfield and Corey Davis, and give them some other options to throw that ball.
Right. Well, for me, the 19th overall selection with the Tennessee Titans, this was more of a luxury pick for me. It was more me saying, like, hey, I was this close to making the playoffs, and you chose an AJ, well, I chose a TJ. I said TJ Hawkinson, tight end from Iowa. I think that the Titans really need someone that can play that tight end position when Delaney's gone, and I think TJ Hawkinson is the perfect fit for that, especially now that the Titans offensive coordinator was their tight ends coach. I think that transition up is what's going to push the Titans to really say, hey, this luxury pick of taking TJ Hawkinson is not a bad thing. He's going to be used as our number one next year, the year after, whenever Delaney's gone. But I think TJ Hawkinson is going to be someone that will be a serious threat in the league, kind of like a Tyler Eifert before the injury, a Gronkowski, a Greg Olsen. You can name them all. I think he can be up there if given the work.
I agree. So moving right along, we got the Pittsburgh Steelers at 20. I chose Byron Murphy, cornerback out of Washington. Yeah. And I think this would be a fantastic pick for them to pair opposite of Artie Burns. I know that they took Terrell Edmonds in the first round last year, which was a surprise to everyone because we all knew that they needed someone to pair opposite of TJ Watt. And we were all like, they're going linebacker, and they didn't. But I think to solidify someone who can play that opposite position of Artie Burns and who's big-bodied and great at batting the ball down. He doesn't get a lot of interceptions, but he can stick his hand in where he needs to.
Right. Byron Murphy really is one of my favorite corner prospects this draft, mainly because of his thuggish mentality, and maybe that's why he had him going to Pittsburgh here. But for me, I had the Steelers taking that linebacker prospect. I said that they would take Devin Bush from Michigan. A lot of people think that Rashawn Gary ran that defense, but he did not. It was all on the shoulders of Devin Bush. He played an outstanding job within his conference. He really commanded the Wolverines' defense, and he made that defense a threat. I mean, he even made Chase Winovich someone to look at as a prospect. I do not have him in my first round, so if you're hoping, sorry. But Devin Bush was the best prospect here on my board, and he really fits a hole for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
So moving right along, falling into these playoff teams, we got the Seattle Seahawks at 21. I chose Jeffrey Simmons, D-tackle out of Mississippi State, just to fill that stronger defensive line, fill some holes that they showed definitely against the Cowboys. And
yeah, they really came on at the end of the year there, and I think that's really what you're looking for with that anchor. You know, you lost Malik McDowell, and it might be he might be out for his whole career without playing a snap.
Yeah,
but definitely a strong selection. I guess I'll go right over to my selection. I said that the Seattle Seahawks would be taking Ja'Kai Polite from University of Florida. I think Ja'Kai Polite plays an outstanding edge presence, and I think that he can move around and be a versatile piece with the Seattle defense, kind of recreating that Legion of Boom and really giving Frank Clark something special on the other side.
Yeah. So moving towards the Baltimore Ravens, I chose N'Keal Harry, wide receiver out of Arizona State, and this kid is everywhere on the field. I mean, when you watch the tape, he's everywhere. He'll go up and get a ball no matter where the ball is, and I think that's something that the Baltimore Ravens need in a number one receiver, with Lamar Jackson being their quarterback.
Yes, for the future.
I think that this pick is what they need. I think they need a receiver to give Lamar someone who's a definitive number one instead of John Brown or Willie Snead. Like, give him
and then
someone,
going straight to the tight ends.
Yeah, give him someone who's an actual number one receiver.
Well, I mean, kind of same thing over here. I said that the Baltimore Ravens would select A.J. Brown being the best receiver on the board. The Baltimore Ravens fell right into the position, kind of like how Carolina did last year with DJ Moore. You know, they were the first team to take a receiver. They took who they wanted. Well, that's what I'm taking here. Baltimore will take A.J. Brown being the consensus number one selection at that position. Last year there was a toss-up between Moore, Ridley, throw in a couple other names that could possibly be it, but with this draft, it's A.J. Brown, DK Metcalf, or bust. So you're really looking at Ole Miss or nothing. And I think that the Ravens hit home runs at all the tight end selections they had last year. Mark Andrews being the best of the bunch, and then kind of trickling down Hayden Hurst. He didn't really perform as well as we thought he would, but he was an older draft selection as a whole. I think he was 29 years old. He played a couple years in baseball, and then he came on down and said, hey, I'm going to play tight end for the Gamecocks. And then, you know, kind of fell into his own kind of position there with the Ravens. But A.J. Brown, best receiver on the board, why not go for it?
That's right. So moving right along to the Houston Texans at 23. I feel the huge need for them at this pick on the offensive line. I chose Cody Ford, offensive tackle out of Oklahoma. As you said before, I mean, big presence and definitely will help them with their big need at offensive line. And it showed against the Colts that's their need. And that's what they need to fix through the draft and the offseason.
And Houston Texans, for me, this was not a luxury pick, although the player made seem that. I had the Houston Texans selecting Andres Greedy Williams from the University of Louisiana State. Andres really is the number one corner in this draft, and it shows being the number one corner off the board for me here, but it doesn't seem like that being so late. But I think that his size and his characteristics are what is going to push him further and further down. I have Byron Murphy higher on my board than Andres Williams, just because of the characteristics and a little bit of his character. Really kind of taking the nickname Greedy kind of locked it in for me there. But with the Houston Texans taking Andres, I see a move from Jonathan Joseph, who is extremely old. I'm not sure if he's retiring or not. I believe I heard that he is, although some other people have told me otherwise. But either way, if he is or isn't, I think Andres Williams would be a perfect fit here, kind of insisting that Tyrann Mathieu comes back and you kind of bring in that DBU to the Houston Texans.
I agree. Well, that kind of flows right along into my next pick. So with the 24th overall pick, the Oakland Raiders, I chose Greedy Williams. For many reasons, I think that the Raiders need someone in that secondary to give them some boost. And I think Greedy or even Byron or even DeAndre Baker, if he falls down here, I think any of those would fulfill that need for Oakland. And that's something that they need, especially in that AFC West with the Chiefs and the Broncos and the Chargers. I mean, you got to have some type of secondary that blocks and passes.
Your mock was very Oakland Raiders, like, favorited.
Yeah.
Rashawn Gary going fourth and then having Greedy Williams. Greedy Williams can easily go as high as number 5.
Oh,
and
I agree.
Here he is at number 24, and for me 23, but that's extremely lucky for them to have their Khalil Mack back with Gary, and then to have a Charles Woodson back with Greedy Williams, which would be very interesting. I had the Oakland Raiders selecting Jalen Ferguson. I really stuck my neck out for this guy when talking about him with other people, as did you. You had him listed on previous mocks as high as, 12?
Yep.
And it's very possible he could go there, but from the Senior Bowl practices and the Senior Bowl performance, I don't think it's appropriate to list him out of the comfort zone just off of one event. I think he could go as high as 12, maybe even higher. It'd be awesome for him. But I think Jalen Ferguson would pair extremely well with Rashawn Gary, who can play interior and outside, but really stick Jalen Ferguson as an edge presence solely. And I think Gruden really wants to provide his team with a defensive, just oriented, like that mean, black hole, Raiders are back in town kind of a thing. And that's what I'm doing with Jalen Ferguson here.
So moving right along to number 25, the Philadelphia Eagles. I chose Andre Dillard, offensive tackle, Washington State. I chose this because Jason Peters, he's getting old. You got to find a replacement for him, and that's another need that you need with Carson Wentz continually getting injured.
I thought you said Marcus Peters.
No.
I was like, he's
Jason
not a corner. My apologies. Sorry about
you're
that.
Good. So I think this would be a great pick for them.
Yes.
I think it's if Dillard falls in their hands, I think it's someone that they should say, wow, and give them another underdog.
Oh, yeah. That definitely would. I think that fits really well with what the Eagles are trying to do on offense. They want to keep Carson Wentz as involved in this scheme as possible. They are dumping Nick Foles for Carson Wentz. I'm not surprised about that, but I still think it's kind of like, okay, like you have your number 2 overall pick, or you have this guy who's getting old and just takes the reins when you set him up. But for me, I went on the other side of the ball. From the offensive line to the defensive backs, I have the team taking DeAndre Baker, who can easily be the first corner off the board. You had him at number 9 to the Broncos, correct?
10.
Number 10?
Number
10 to the Broncos. I keep making that mistake. But number 10 to the Broncos. But I think DeAndre Baker would make a great addition to this defense. They have Darby still there. I'm not sure how many years he has left on his contract. This might be his the end of his contract here. But DeAndre Baker, he really has that arm length that he can defend the ball from Amari Cooper now. He can defend the ball from Odell Beckham. And he can really, whoever is in Washington at this point, Josh Doxson or Jameson Crowder. But I think he can really provide a great presence in that defensive back.
So we finally got back to being similar on picks, we both chose DK Metcalf, wide receiver out of Ole Miss for the Indianapolis Colts, and I think this is a big need for them to find someone who can play that opposite wide receiver of T.Y. Hilton.
Right.
Side note, this would be pretty funny because both DK and Andrew Luck have had neck injuries.
That was going to be my comment.
But DK has been completely cleared to do anything and everything that he wants to do.
Yep.
It is pretty scary to pick a receiver with the neck injury, but I think he's gonna prove himself to be one of those top receivers that can be it.
When you're the Colts at this position, you kind of came out of nowhere and just be this great team. But DK Metcalf would be an instant presence on this offense. Andrew Luck will use him. He uses T.Y. Hilton. You won't see it every single week, but he's going to show up when it counts. Because Eric Ebron really took over this AFC South as a whole. And maybe you could even say the AFC because he made it to his first Pro Bowl after being a 10th overall pick dud with the Detroit Lions the previous year. But he came into the Colts system. He wanted to be the number 1 tight end. He took the number 1 overall tight end position, and he ran with it. With this, you're looking at weapons for Andrew Luck.
Yep. So moving right along, we got the Oakland Raiders' third and final pick of the first round.
All right.
I picked another kind of fitting pick to fill their need, to fill that Amari Cooper disappearance in John Gruden's head. So I picked Kelvin Harmon, wide receiver out of NC State. I think this is just he's on the board still, and he's a capable first round pick, and I think he would be a late round first pick if anything. And I think this fills a great need. Instead of having Seth Roberts as their number one, they can have Kelvin Harmon.
Right.
I mean, you could also go Paris Campbell here, but I think that Kelvin can do everything that Amari did and more in Oakland.
Right. Kelvin Harmon, I'm a big North Carolina kind of a person, so I followed his kind of story a little bit. He's a great possession receiver, and that's what's going to put him above some of the rest. Deebo Samuel from South Carolina, he's really coming up to be that fighting for a first-round pick selection. I could see him going pretty late as well. Definitely it might be a first-round pick with Deebo. But Kelvin Harmon, I think his skill set is what is going to separate him from the rest, and that's what's going to make him special. With that said, I'm going to jump right over to my pick with the Oakland Raiders taking Trayvon Mullen, the cornerback from Clemson. He had an excellent showing against an extremely explosive Crimson Tide offense, really shutting down Tua Tagovailoa, however you say it. But he shut him down and had a lot of pass breakups. His presence was definitely felt from a lot of the receivers there, and he came around to be the defensive MVP for that entire game. Sure, he wasn't Trevor Lawrence, the overall MVP, but definitely made his name and his case known. But with that selection, you had them taking Greedy Williams earlier. This is me kind of filling that hole of them needing defensive backs. After I gave them two edge presences with Gary and Ferguson, and this is kind of wrapping up that whole we're going to go all in on defense and work on our offense later under Derek Carr.
So moving on to number 28, the Los Angeles Chargers. I chose Dexter Lawrence, defensive tackle out of Clemson. I think this fits great because you got Joey Bosa on the end and you got Melvin Ingram on the other, and then you stick Dexter Lawrence right in the middle between those two, and I mean, that run line is going to be pretty hard to get. It
already is hard, even with Square and Feelin. Those are their two defensive and Maybain, who had that tragic story at the end of the season there about his family, but Dexter Lawrence is a great fit for this defense.
I think that to carry them one step farther to get to that AFC Championship game, I think this is the next step to fill out that defensive line.
For the Chargers, there's a lot of next steps, aren't there?
Well, yeah.
It seems like it.
They need a next step at a couple of different positions to get there, but this is one step being completed.
Right. With my selection for the LA Chargers, I chose to go with Mack Wilson, the linebacker from the Crimson Tide. Mack Wilson, I think this is more of a let's expect Denzel Perryman to leave kind of a scenario. The defense looks extremely good. There's definitely some holes around the linebacking to middle of the defensive line, like you had it filled with Dexter Lawrence. But I could really see someone like Mack Wilson really coming in, making his presence, making his case felt that I was the number one overall pick. Perryman was not. But with Mack Wilson, he can really run down the middle of the field, tackle the quarterback, or he can play some coverage. And that's why I think he could be a great fit for this Chargers defense.
So moving right along to another team in the AFC West, the Kansas City Chiefs, who have proven something of themselves. I mean, to make it this far from nothing to being something really to be talked about. And their biggest weakness is definitely on their defense.
Yep, I think you can just say defense as a whole.
Yeah. And I chose to fill out some of the secondary position, and I chose Nasir Adderley, safety out of Delaware. This kid proved a lot in the Senior Bowl week as a whole.
Yeah,
and
practice and the game.
I mean, I watched some of the tape, and I mean, this kid is crazy. I mean, he'll get to that ball no matter where that ball is. I saw a lot of something that could spark that Chiefs defense to be that next step better. And I think to beat that Tom Brady team, you need someone in that back secondary to say, I'm gonna get to that ball no matter where that ball is on that field.
Right, and we're a D Ford encroachment call away from it being a totally different Super Bowl and a totally different position here.
Yeah.
The Chiefs wound up in this selection because they had the lesser of the Saints overall record, but I love Nasir Adderley. I see him going to at least 31 of the 32 teams here.
Oh, yeah.
And basically because other teams have like a Derwin James or a kind of like, other kind of safety position that already is filled like that with like a one year guy. But I've also seen a lot of things about he met with at least 25 of the 32 teams after the Senior Bowl happened. So he's got a very bright future after that game and just after his collegiate career. Mm-hmm. But rounding into my 29th overall selection, the Kansas City Chiefs will be selecting Byron Murphy, corner from Washington. And this is why I got confused with you saying Marcus Peters, because this was kind of my fill-in. The Chiefs needed a Marcus Peters because of him going to the Rams. But Byron Murphy, he's a thug, he's a goon, and he will take the ball and he will take you down with it. I think that says it all itself, and he is my number one corner in this class, even with Greedy Williams and DeAndre Baker being there. But Murphy, definitely a presence that needs to be felt in this draft, and the Chiefs need that defensive back help.
I agree. So moving right along, we got the Green Bay Packers in place of the New Orleans Saints here at number 30. I picked Ja'Kai Polite, defensive end, outside linebacker out of Florida. I think this would be a great fit to fill in for that Clay Matthews position.
Right.
I mean, Clay Matthews is getting old, and I think it needs to be moved on from. And I think this kid can be forced to be reckoned with in the
Absolutely.
NFL.
I mean, I had him going to Seattle and doing the exact same thing that you're talking about. Mm-hmm. They need to fill in those presences. Yeah. With my selection with the Green Bay Packers, I had them not moving on from Devonta Adams, but more helping him. I had them selecting Paris Campbell from the Ohio State University. Why is it not Deebo Samuel, and why is it not Kelvin Harmon? I think Paris Campbell can be a fly route kind of a player. I did not have N'Keal Harry in this first round draft mock. I had him going as high as the Buffalo Bills at number 9. And I just think Paris Campbell is a great fit for the Green Bay Packers, more or less because he is around winning quarterbacks. He knows the stress, and he knows what it is like to be that underrated great player. Yeah. I could see a lot of Anthony Johnson from the University of Buffalo. I could see a lot of Deebo Samuel, as I said a few times, and I could see Kelvin Harmon. But this one is more of a offensive weapon help kind of a selection for the Green Bay Packers.
So moving towards the Super Bowl teams, this is our prediction, hoping, fingers are crossed, that this happens.
Yes.
At 31, we have the New England Patriots, and I chose someone to just fix a defensive line that
Needs help.
And I picked Jalen Ferguson, defensive end out of Louisiana Tech. For a lot of the same reasons as where you put him. I know he can be that next step to making that defensive line better. And he is in a division where you can see more and more mobile quarterbacks. Mm-hmm. And the quarterbacks are getting younger and younger. Tom Brady is by far the oldest. I mean, and then you have 2 rookies this year in Josh Allen and Sam Darnold in that division, and they showed what they can do. And I think putting Jalen Ferguson on that line will kind of keep those rookie quarterbacks in line in the pocket, and if he can't even get to them, he will make his presence known.
Right. And for me, the last 2 selections, it kind of came more down to who's going to be leaving the team. I went with Gronkowski being the player out that may retire. I think this might be his last game coming up against the Rams. But with the 31st overall pick, I have the New England Patriots selecting Noah Fant from Iowa. We talked about T.J. Hawkinson, his teammate, but I think that Noah Fant, he is the biggest name, and he's going to make the biggest impact overall. I think Tom Brady's going to use him to whatever he needs. I think this is going to be the next Rob Gronkowski, although we have Hawkinson ahead of him. But I think Noah Fant will have a better career out in New England. All that barring how long Tom stays. But the Patriots will be selecting a tight end on my mock.
So moving to the last pick of the draft, we have the Los Angeles Rams. And I chose Devin Bush, linebacker out of Michigan, for a lot of good reasons. I mean, you said it pretty emphatically about him and said that he was that field general. And I think he can be that field general for the Rams defense that they don't have. I mean, they got rid of Alec Ogletree, who went to the Giants, and really haven't found someone to fit that position again.
Right.
Yes, they got a lot of great defensive linemen, but if the pass gets off, are you really going to be able to cover your running backs or the tight ends with a linebacker?
Mm-hmm.
And we saw some of those holes being shown in that game against the Saints.
Right. And I mean, like I said with the previous one, the D Ford encroachment, we're a pass interference call away from a different story. Get over it, Saints fans. So with the 32nd overall selection, I have the LA Rams selecting Dexter Lawrence, defensive tackle from Clemson. Previously to, like I said, with the Patriots and new faces, something like that, retirements and re-signings, we could very well see Ndamukong Suh somewhere else next year, mainly because he was only signed for 1 year on a very low contract for his tastes. But he is a very lavished player financially. He requires a lot of money, apparently. But unless he wants to come back to LA and play again with the Rams, I see them taking Dexter Lawrence to fill in his shoes and being that fill-in player for the Rams defense for the future rather than a re-signed player next year.
Well, that concludes our mock drafts, and definitely a lot to think about coming through these drafts. Absolutely. And hoping that the Combine will kind of put the spotlight on a couple of players and say, all right, this team's taking this player for sure, kind of a thing. But I hope you guys enjoyed it, and thanks for coming along.
Thank you.
Enjoyed being and talking about this stuff, and hope you guys enjoyed it. Thanks.